G'day fans of the NPL. It is TheVerd back with you again. A little bit sick, but I'm not going to let that, stop me from doing my analyst work. And I'm joined by a very healthy and happy Phalop. How you going this week, man?
Hey man, yeah, I'm also having a bit of an off day, not feeling also too well. So yeah, let's just crack this one open.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's been a rough day for both of us, so we're keen to just
Yeah.
get some discussion in and smash it out. But let's begin with obviously the bottom four, which I believe is pretty much the same as last week,
Yeah.
almost in the exact same positions as last week, because unfortunately none of these coaches were able to get wins on the board. Um, let's just brush over them quite quickly. Would you like to talk
hmm
about Carney's performance this week?
yeah, I think Carney had a nice performance. Like it was only a 1-0 he lost to Maddie. It was quite a close match. Like for the first time he used the plus all and it got a kill. So I think Carney was quite happy with that. Yeah, in the end, I think it came down to that it was just really close. But I think it was also quite hard to pull out the win for Kanye. I think he had to win some potential 50-50s. But yeah, I think he came close to one of the better contenders. And I think that with this flow, he should be able to pick up a win like anytime. And I hope he does because I think everyone is like hoping that he picks up a win before he goes 0-8 like Riz went last season.
Exactly. I must say one highlight of this game, guys, was Kandi's Nihilego set. It was really good. For the matchup against Maddie, it put
Yeah.
in a lot of work at the start. I think he got like one or two kills, but it just opened a lot of doors
Mm-hmm.
for him. So definitely
Yeah.
Carney is improving, and I mean, I feel like a win is coming. I don't know exactly when it's going to happen, but I feel like there are a few matchups
Yeah.
coming up that Carney can win. But moving on, we have in 15th Moxie and Fernape in the Baltimore Brave Arrows. Just quickly touching on their game because I did watch it live when it happened. I was in a call with
Mm-hmm.
people, and it was just it was a little bit frustrating to watch because there were certain turns where like sometimes Merc can telegraph a play, and I was sitting in the call and I can't remember who I was in the call with, but I reckon 4 or 5 turns like it was very obvious what Merc was going to do, and um, Moxie just didn't read it. I mean, I don't know if that's just in the heat of battle you don't see it as well, but he just wasn't
Mm-hmm.
really making any big plays, I suppose, to really change the course of the game. I think his team was also just incredibly weak to Gengar plus hazards. For the fact that like Serena just can't touch Gengar at all. It doesn't really have
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
any solid moves to hit it with, and then Hex Gengar plus the T Spikes was a really really good bring on Merck's part. We'll talk about that later, but I just think that he didn't prep that great for the opponent. I think just his battling. This is probably I would say, and I do really respect Blake, but I
Mm-hmm.
think when it comes to all of his weeks so far in the PMC, like I think this is probably one of the worst weeks he's had. I think it's just come down to not the best prep and not the best execution of the team that he had on deck. But I think he also got a bit unlucky. There was that crit on Slowking that was really unfortunate. I don't know how much it mattered to the course of the battle. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I still think it was very much in Merck's favour, but that was unfortunate. I think he can definitely
Yeah.
bounce back from here. It was just a rough week. I think he's made a few changes coming up that will help his team. But regardless, let's just move on here to Cloud and the Jersey Bulls, who didn't really play that badly against Trev. Was there anything you wanted to touch on from that game?
Uh, no, I think it was like a pretty straightforward game. I think it was just like Cloud knew that like Gyarados was like is one of his main win cons because Trev didn't really have a water resist, but then he kind of threw it in against the Excelgor, and the Excelgor revealed that it had yawn and even outsped it to turn after a DD and could encore it, so it could like really neutralize the Gyarados. And I think once the Gyarados was neutralized, I think for Trev it was just like slowly cleaning up the game. So yeah, Cloud was never really in like Trev was always in control, just to say. And I think that was a bit of the downfall for Cloud. He couldn't get the momentum on his side.
Yeah, for sure. And then obviously the last team to kind of discuss in this was Danza, who I believe he ended up losing against Abe in this matchup. It was just, I don't know. I don't know what's happened with Dan's over the last couple of weeks. Something's changed about the way that he plays, and I don't know. I don't know if he's just, it might be the same stuff that Dallas was struggling with, where he just can't find his groove. Maybe he just needs a bit of time off. I don't really I know that Danza is a phenomenal battler, and that's why it's just like, he's definitely also one of those guys that can really bring it to Abe, I think, in a good match. And to Abe's credit, he played really well. Like, Kartana just went in. But I think,
Scarf Kartana,
I think also at the same time, there's still a bit of work for Danza to do. I don't want to see him in the bottom 4 every week. I would like to see him lift himself up out of there. Is there anything you'd like to touch on maybe from Danza at all?
No, I think it was just like he's a bit out of touch recently, and then like he knew Katana was big of a threat, so he had more of a bulky defensive ante, but that got like whittled and killed really early, and after that was just Scarf Katana just ran through his whole team, and that pretty much lost him.
Yeah, at this point, guys, these are probably the bottom 4. However, there is one team that I think is a bit on the edge of potentially joining them in the bottom 4 as we flip over to the next group of 4, and that is the Chicago Bewares. Razor had a really strong start to the season, but he has found himself struggling against a lot of the higher up opponents, and this week again was no different. I think something's got to give. Like, I don't know what Razor. I don't know. Like, I don't necessarily think he's playing that. He claims that he is playing badly, but I don't even know if it's that. I think just it maybe is the way that he's prepping or something. But if something has changed in the way that Razor's been going about his battling, is there anything like you've noticed with it that could be a factor?
I don't really know. Like for me this week, like Razor has been a bit off as of late, but like this week there was like potential. Like he didn't have the best matchup, but still he had some nice prep. But then the one turn where he missed like the Stone Edge on the Thunderous Therian, that was also but almost immediately his downfall, because after that like the Thunderous really put in a lot of work, really stopped like his Heliolisk plus Tapu Koko core from spamming moves like Thunderbolt, and just that one turn really decided this game. And I think who knows what would have happened when the Stone Edge would have hit, but I think Razor could have really brought it to Toge this week. So I hope next week, just with a little bit more luck and just a little bit more effort, I think he can definitely give it to the top-notch opponents.
Yeah, that Stone Edge miss was critical, because I believe it put Thunderous into Rock's range, and that thing being out of the way, I mean, I don't know how much it would have changed the battle. I don't know if it would have led definitively to Razor winning, but it really would have been a massive boost in his chances of winning. But moving on, and we have Shardy and the Bayern Munich currently sitting at 11th. Obviously, Shardy this week went up against Zazo, I believe. That was this week's match. Yeah. And it wasn't a bad match. I think, Shardy, he brought some interesting sets. I actually had a chat with him about the Rapidash set, and it was quite solid against Zazo's team, but just the bulk of things like, Kyurem is just insane. Like the way I was able to take those hits. And, in the end, I think he just didn't bring enough checks to certain threats and just got a bit overrun. I think he just didn't capitalize on the game as much as he could have as it went on. But, I mean, it is a very tough opponent to have to go up against in Anthony. And so I think Shardy can still feel pretty good that, it wasn't, too bad. I don't think it was too bad of a result. I don't really think the score really dictates how close the battle was. He did play quite well in this matchup, but I think, I think it's hard as well for Shardy. A lot of people won't understand this, that he was given a team that he has to change a lot of stuff on, and he still has a lot of weaknesses that a lot of trades and transfers can't cover. And that makes it very tough. So for what he's been able to do so far this season with this team should be honestly commended. I see him still potentially pushing to playoffs, but it's going to be very hard because although he has a lot of good offense on his team, there's just a lot of defensive synergy that just isn't there, and it's going to be very hard for him to find that. But we're going to move on and look at the Atlanta Braviaries, a team that actually were able to get a win this season and get themselves now to 3-3, I believe. Pretty sure it's 3-3. It's not 2-4. Yeah, 3-3.
Yeah.
But I'm still not convinced. It is 2 wins in a row for Trev, but I'm still not convinced. How do you feel about their performance this week?
Yeah, I think like he had nice prep, like something like SD the Crossman, like some really nice things. The Uncle Jan Excelga really stopped the offense of Cloud, but it's still like it was a win. It was also against one of our lower ranked opponents, so it's still like, is Trev now really back with those wins, or is it just like if he faces another top tier opponent, he might lose again? And I think this week he faces Cezo, so I think this is the week to prove himself.
Yeah, it is a bit of a make or break week because I mean, him going 4-3 is actually really good. Like, I think in his division, he's actually doing quite well. But rankings wise, when you've gone from 1-3 to 2-3, it's good to see those results. But like you said, yeah, it's just the lower tier opponents he's been facing, and we're both not exactly convinced. But moving on to the final spot in the bottom 8, and we both have a differing team, but they're both also on the other side of our rankings in 9th and 8th respectively. Yeah. I have the Sunflowers, you have the Staraptors. So would you like to talk about the Staraptors for a little bit?
No. So for me, it's like if I look just only at as the battler and I know what they can do, I would put Jolt like above Riz. But the fact that Jolt is now 2-4 instead of being 3-3, and again he had a quite a rough loss against Seb. Like it was really close, but he keeps losing those really close matches against the higher tier opponents, and I think that might just like I don't know how Jolt will handle it. Like normally he would come out on top of those matches. So yeah, I loved his prep. Like Jolt always has great prep, and I think he had quite a solid game plan this week with the Talonflame, the dual healing with support, and yeah, he knew what he had to do, but yeah, he just fell short again.
Yeah, I think that the reason why, I guess I'll talk about Jolt in a second, but the reason why I have Riz in this spot is I think that Jolt, you know, both these guys have performed pretty well so far, and I don't mean any offense to Riz, but I do hold Jolt in a bit of a higher acclaim because I know how good Jolt can be. Like when Jolt's on, he is on. And I just feel when you look at the fact that last week we had, I had Jolt quite a few spaces above Riz. You did have Jolt above Riz. I feel that since both of them lost, and I mean, one loss I feel was more convincing than the other, I just couldn't see myself putting Riz above Jolt. Like, yeah, both losses were bad. Like, they were both very bad losses for both coaches, both now at 2-4. I think because...
Riz is 3-3, I believe.
Is he? Riz is winning more than I thought he was.
Yeah, I thought he was.
Riz is winning more than I thought he was this season. But the reason why I think that 2-4 Jolt is better than 3-3 Riz is because although Riz did have that good win over Abe, Gypsy showed just a lot of flaws in his team and his planning and whatnot. I think, you know, that's going to open the door for other coaches to take advantage of that. Whereas with Jolt, I feel like now, you know, he's been opened up enough. He's had 4 losses against very good opponents that the only way for a player like him from here is up. I can see him, you know, going back to the drawing board, making some really solid teams and getting back into this. Plus, I think, you know, some of his upcoming matchups, like in the future, are quite favourable. I think Jolt can definitely bounce back from this. Funnily enough, Jolt is the kind of player, kind of like someone like Trev, who does perform really well against the higher class opponents. And although he has a lot of narrow losses, it's good to see that Jolt has been putting in that effort to, you know, get very close results as compared to other players below him who against the higher opponents have been absolutely slaughtered. So I guess that's how I viewed it. But as we obviously go over here and you have Riz above Jolt, is there anything else you'd like to touch on from Riz and his performance this week?
I think not much. I think it was just a really solid performance by Gypsy. So yeah, like Riz had not really much to tell. I think maybe his prep could have been a bit better. Like there was like a certain Scotty Pete set that I know Dylan was also quite afraid of to face. That didn't really come, and Mega Kangaskhan just with Seismic Toys bulky, it also a real great number versus Gypsy almost anytime it does. But like small things like that, I think maybe for Riz, focusing more on his prep would be nice. And I think in the match, like he had to make some certain plays, which Dylan also knew that Riz was in the back, so he had to make some kind of play so he could play accordingly. And yeah, that just didn't pay out well for Riz.
Yeah. But moving on here, guys, we have the 7th place team right now, which is the St. Louis Reshiram. Now, this is kind of like, okay, so we talk about how Trev was at 1-3 and now is at 3-3, and we were still a bit iffy about him. But this is a man that took a team that was 1-3 and is now 3-3. Whereas the fact that he didn't lose those 3 matches, he has only won the 2 that he's been in. It was a very close game against Carney, but he still did what he had to do to win. Like, he was on the back foot very much early on in the game because of that fantastic Nihilego set. And I think, backs against the wall, Maddie just did what Maddie had to do and made the right plays and got the result. There's not really much else that I want to say about Maddie's performance. I think it was just one of those battles where it was very back and forth, like hit for hit, and in the end, Maddie just had more hitters than Carney did. But is there anything you'd like to touch on from the match, or from Maddie's perspective, I suppose?
No, not that much. I think it's pretty much as you say. Like Maddie had just that clear his win concept in mind, and it was really close, but he just performed quite well. He also said like there was like, I think in the beginning he shouldn't have ever let I think Stormy get off a rapid spin, because even Stormy got off the rapid spin, plus the sash wouldn't be intact. Some other mons of Carney would be a bit whittled, and like a mon like Marjana could have more easily cleaned up. So there was a bit, he was a bit in the back from the beginning from like that play, but in the end he knew what he had to do, like make the good switches, set up at the right time, and just pull out that narrow win.
Yeah, no, I think it was a close game. I think Maddie, I don't even know if it was Russ, but he certainly, I think over the last few weeks, has proven that over time, like, he still has it. And even with a team, like, we talk about Shardy, who was put in a bit of a rough spot with the team he was given. Same, I guess, goes for Moxie. But I think Maddie probably got the best deal out of all 3 of them. I think, Dallas's team was very solid, and then even the bad picks further down that we were a bit iffy on, Maddie was able to get redrafts and trades to fix those up, and now he has probably one of the best teams in the competition, and I believe he gets his showdown with Gypsy next week, which is going to be probably match of the week. I see no reason why it wouldn't be.
Yeah, for sure.
It is going to be exciting. But a team, when we talked about it last season, we had a really good chat about this, where this match was a make or break for both of them. It was the difference between going 2-4 and 3-3, and as far as Seb and the Florida for Alligators went, they got their win. It's been 3 weeks for them without a win. It was a really big one. As we talked about, Jolt brought some funky stuff, but do you want to take a bit of time to talk about like the stuff that Seb brought and why it was so influential in this big win?
It was like pretty much like for Seb. It was just like for this match, like Jolt had some clear plans in mind, but Seb kind of saw through some of those things. Like Jolt was planning on catching Seb with the natural gift Azumarill, but like as soon as Seb saw that Azumarill was not like something like a choice bandit, he knew almost immediately that it was like a natural gift set. And I think other than that, like the was it and then at the end it was like how he made that switch into Zygarde on that Azumarill, like that really clinched him the game. Like the last few turns were like really close, could go either way. Seb made the correct plays and he pulled out that 1-0 win.
Yeah, it was just one of those big, like you said, make or break kind of matches. And I mean, to be fair, I don't know really who was going in the favourite to this game. Both had been on a massive losing streak, but I think that brought out the best in both of them. I'm really hoping this is the kick up the butt that Seb needs to get his game back, because I know he's been sick and all that stuff lately, and that does obviously affect a man's thinking, but I think this win is a huge factor for him. It's a big win for him, and hopefully it propels him bigger things. Because I'd like to see him challenge the guys that are in spots 5 and above. Because I think there is a bit of daylight
Mhm.
between those guys, and I would say between 6th and ninth right now. But we are going to talk about 5th and 4th place because again, like last week, it's two guys that we have in two different spots, and like the reasons stay the same. Like I honestly think the Braylons have performed better so far this season.
Mhm.
You feel the Reggie Giants have performed better so far this season, and
Yeah.
the thing is that if both of these guys keep winning like they are, we're probably not going to change where we've put them. Like, unless the people above
true.
them start to lose, they're probably always going to be one up on each other. But I wouldn't mind just taking a bit of time to talk about, Abe's performance. But before I do that, obviously, I mean, we both have him in fourth. Is there anything you want to talk about negatively, I suppose, on behalf of Abe or Merc, for that matter, since we're looking at maybe the group of 5 that we have here?
Yeah. I think a little bit of thing about Abe, like we all know, and everyone in MPL knows, Abe is quite like the rushed person. Like he wants to get his battle done immediately. If you would ask him to do his week 12 battle now, he would make a team in 10 minutes. He would be ready. That's just how Abe rolls. But the thing with that also leads to sometimes few misplays because he plays quite fast. But like the past few weeks, he didn't have. He made some teams himself, but most of the time he ended up with like quite some sets that were not made by him. I think Bird helped him out quite a lot. He's also out said it himself, and I don't know if like he has getting a nice feel for his team. I think, but like if you don't do all the prep yourself, it's just a bit like how well do you know your team then? But yeah, I think other than that, Scarf Katana set this week was beautiful. And for Merc this week, I think he just had the right plan. Yeah, the sub-hex Gengar is really great. And I don't think there was like much flaws he made this week.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna definitely agree with that. I think that when it comes to Merc, the reason why I still have him below Abe, I think both of them played very, very good games. But like I said a little bit earlier on, was just that I felt that some of Merc's plays were a little bit obvious. So like to a more experienced player, they would be like, oh well, this is going to be more easy to read. And we have seen that happen with Merc, against some of the higher tier opponents like Gypsy and Zazo, where they have been able to read it a little bit better. But unfortunately for Moxie, he wasn't able to do that, and so Merc was able to capitalize. I think he made a couple of really good plays. Like, he played the core of Jirachi and Latios really well in this game. Like I can't fault that usage there. They put in a lot of work. Mega Latios, I believe, is actually the current leader for kills now. So he's using it very, very well. It is a potent threat, but he's showing that it's not just about running D-Dance or just running like a Calm Mind offensive set. He's showing that bulky Mega Latios can work really well in this format too. And I think it's that usage of diversity that's making him a very strong contender for a potential championship this season, which is great to see. But the reason why I still have the Breloons over them as we go over to the next slide here is because I just feel that Abe, he has, like, I agree with what you were saying about team building. He does have issues. Like, he has openly admitted that he has issues with the team building. But I think what he lacks in team building, he makes up in battling. I think that when it comes down to a player making decisions and just doing the right play at the right time, Abe is probably one of the best at that, if not the best at that. And, in this match, it was no different. Like, he set himself up to a point where he knew once Entei went down that Kartana was basically there to sweep. Like, he pretty much just rolled through the rest of Danz's team. I think, he made a couple of odd plays. Like, I'll admit, the belly drum with Poliwrath was a little bit iffy. I think, at that point of the battle, potentially what would have been better for him was damaging the Entei more, just to try and get it into range of where even +1 Kartana could just come in and blow it back. Potentially that could have been a better play for him, but at the same time, I think, in his video he explains Belly Drum was still a decent play. And in the end, he still got the result, so I can't really fault him that much for it. And I think next week, he does actually have a tricky matchup against Cloud. Now, whether Cloud is able to bring the right threats will really test Abe, but I think, it could be a really good test for him team building wise, because as good as he is battling, if he has a bad matchup and he doesn't have that team building skill behind him, that's where he could struggle a bit this season. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But moving on to currently the third place, and it's really hard again to split the top three. They all had wins this week, and it's really hard to say that one did better than the other. So we're just going to keep the order the way it is. So at number 3, we still have the King of Gypsies. Against Riz, it was a really tough matchup. Like you said, the Seismic Kang is very scary because it basically has the ability to two-shot everything in the game, pretty much, that isn't over 404 HP. So that's a scary factor, but luckily for Gypsy, Riz brought a bit more of a kooky set. I think it was like Power Up Punch Facade, which to an extent was good because it sets up on Toxapex, but at the same time, it kind of lost one-on-one to Rocky Helmet Zapdos. Same situation that Riz got into against, I believe it was Merc with the Seismitoad, where...
Not Toad.
Oh, Toad, yeah. Where it was basically just Rocky Helmet is a huge factor against Kang, and we're seeing it now with a lot of teams bringing the Rocky Helmet and shutting down that Kangaskhan, as it was really a dampener. Riz did, though, make a really nice prep of Wish on Kangaskhan for that, but I think Gypsy just, played a really conservative game. Like, it wasn't... Gypsy can play quite an aggressive game, but I think this game, he knew that there was a lot of offensive threats on Riz's team, and in order to win this game, he had to go kind of defensive and safe at the start, and eventually as the game went on, he decided to seize more and more control. It was, we look at players, like Abe, as you said, who like to go out all guns blazing at the start, try and get that win as soon as possible, but Gypsy is one of those guys who is happy to wait 100 turns to get that victory if it means that he wins. Like, he can play the long game, the patient game, and I think, Riz was just trying to do a little bit too much, that couldn't really get past Gypsy's defense, and it was just another classic Gypsy win, just turning your opponent's offense into their worst nightmare, and I can't really fault anything that he did. He made all the right plays. He talks about it really well in his battle recaps as well, guys, so you should go check those out, but I don't know if there's anything else you want to touch on from the game at all?
No, pretty much you covered it all.
Well, the next one that you can cover as we float over to the top 2 who have stayed the same as always. Obviously, there was that controversy with the Stone Edge miss in Toge's game. Do you feel like it was like a huge factor in... like? Do you think there was a chance for Razor to win if that Stone Edge had connected?
I think the chance would be a bit higher for Razor. I would never say he would win instantly, because they both would play like a whole different match, and I think Toge still had quite a lot of threats for Razor's team, and I also know Toge is a really capable battler, so I think he might have still pulled out the win, but still it was it was only a 2-0 with that miss in mind. After that miss for Razor was a bit off due to that miss, and Toge took full advantage. He got the match in his control, and he never let it go. So he pretty much dominated the whole match. He had to pick some sacks. Razor's team is quite offensive, so that's all fair, and he still won 2-0, but he won it in a quite dominant fashion after that miss. So nothing to fault at him for that.
Yeah, exactly. It could have been a lot closer, judging on later in that game. It would have been interesting to see how it would have panned out if Stone Edge connected. I definitely can't say whether it was a guaranteed win or not. I agree with you on that, but I definitely would have really liked to have seen what would have happened. It would have been more Toge's back against the wall and how he comes back from that. And I think that's the thing we haven't really seen too much this season. Is a lot of Toge's games, he has been quite a lot in control, and we haven't really seen him perform like he has in seasons past, where he's been backs against the wall. How do I come back from this situation? And that's one of the issues that I have with Toge is, he can dominate against a lot of opponents, but what's going to happen when he goes up against those opponents that push him against the wall and he can't bounce back? One that comes to mind, obviously, is that round 2 match against, it was technically Blake playing with Joey's team, and he just ended up losing that one where his back was against the wall against that Manaphy set, and he just couldn't find a way through it. and that was just, that's a little bit worrying for me. Is that Toge has dominated, but when he is when somebody is giving it to him, we haven't seen as much bite back, and that's going to be an interesting thing to watch for the rest of the season. Because I think there's going to be some opponents that really will push him, and whether he can push back is going to be very pivotal to whether he actually can succeed in playoffs. But there is only one number one team. Again, he didn't really play that bad against Shardy. One thing that a lot of people have been talking to me about is the fact that Toge has been dominating a lot of his games, whereas Zazo has, been crawling across the line with some of these wins. So why isn't Toge ahead of Zazo? And one of the main reasons, guys, because we have doubts over Toge. We've seen Toge at his best and his worst, and he was a little bit fortunate in the game against Razor, whereas, there hasn't been too much seriously defining hacks in a lot of Anthony's matches, and I think he's just played the smart game. He's got a very, very solid team. He has very, very solid prep, and against Shardy, it just all came together perfectly for him. Is there anything you'd want to touch on from the Shardy game?
I think it's just weeks like this, Anthony can really show why he is so great in his format. That his prep comes a long way. This match, for example, just a few examples. The Mew was more of a bulky Mew. Shadi fight, okay, I can set up a substitute with Drapion, but no, he was bulky Mew with enough speed to outspeed mons like Drapion, so got the Will-O-Wisp off earlier, just some small prep. Then you expect Curan Black more of the big offensive threat it is. He brought a Toxic Roost set, walled quite a lot of Shadi's offense this week. Just those some small things that you don't really expect. He brings them, and that's just, he gets really creative with his sets, and he just knows most of the time the best six to bring, the best sets, and that comes a far way in his battles.
Yeah, I don't really want to harp on too much about it because we always sing his praises, and I know it gives him a throbbing erection. But I think this week it was just really good prep. It was more of a bulky team than what we normally see from him. We do see a lot of offense, but he showed, I think, what was the best part about this week, I think, for me, was he showed his diversity. He showed that he's not just an offensive one-trick pony, that he can run that good defensive game. And against an offensive team like the Bayern Munich that's the way you have to play. And so, can't really fault Zazo for this week. And I can't really fault him at all. These top, I'd say, 3 or 4 for both of us, it's very hard to split between. I think really just the top 5. There is that discernible gap between them and the rest of the competition right now. I feel they're just performing so well in the format. And for the fact that, they all have at least 2-game gap over everybody below them right now, I believe, at this point, except for Merc. I think Merc is 4-2 right now.
Yeah, Merc's 4-2.
But Abe and above are all at least 5-1 or 6-0. So they already have 2 games above a lot of their competition, which is massive at this point of the competition, already being that far ahead. And it doesn't seem like much, but trust me, 2 wins is a lot. Because if you're looking at players who are currently leading through a lot of teams, and they are 2 to 3 wins ahead of you, it's if you want to get ahead of them, you're going to need to either beat them in a divisional match or hope that they go up against some really tough opponents. It's going to be very interesting to see how this all kind of plays out. I, for one, am really excited to see. This is basically, we're about halfway through the season right now. I think we pretty much have reached the halfway point of our power rankings, and this is how it looks right now, guys. Zazo, hasn't lost yet. Whether he remains undefeated and does another Gypsy King, we will have to wait and see, but I think there are a lot of good teams right now. I would say from 11th up to 1st, right now as it stands, all those positions are very... Well, let's rephrase this for a second. I'd say positions 6th to 11th are very much up for grabs right now. They're very close, very hard to decide between. I think, a slip up from Merc or Abe could really be critical, but I don't see either of them slipping up anytime soon. I feel like they've both been just playing too well that they're going to slip up so easily. But is there anything that you're looking forward to, I guess, heading into next week other than Maddie versus Gypsy?
I think it's also this week, but also just the upcoming weeks, like a lot of matches are like really close. Like our top half over the next few weeks plays each other pretty much every week, and also our bottom half. So like the bottom half can sneak in some wins, get some higher up. If the top half loses some, they will move down. And I think other than this week, I think Arizona versus Merck versus Stoke is also a really good one to watch because they are both in our top 5 right now. So who will win that one? Then Jolt versus Shadi is like the battle of the guys who are currently sitting in the middle pack, but are still, I think, both 2 and 4, or Shadi's 2 and 3 or something. So like they need to win. So those are some really great matches.
For sure. And obviously, guys, you can check out all these matches by subscribing to every one of the coaches' channels to go check out their games. Also, subscribe to this channel if you would like to see more analyst videos like the podcast and this one. They happen every week. And you can always go back and watch the other ones that we have done. Paul, thank you once again for joining me, man. And hopefully we both recover better tomorrow. And
yeah, I know.
And can come back next week and do a much better rankings. I think this is still a good rankings drawing, but I think we could definitely be more animated. We're both pretty flat right now, but we did try our best, guys. So if you could show us some love in the comments, that would be fantastic. Like this video if you did enjoy it, and above all else, guys, if you are not already subscribed to the NPL channel, please do. I believe we recently reached, it was either 200 or 250 subscribers, and it would be phenomenal if we could potentially even double that this year. Would be amazing. To get to like 500 subscribers by the end of the year, I think is a very reasonable goal for this league. I think we could definitely do it, and your guys' support will be the main factor in us achieving that. But for us here at the NPL, guys, that's going to do it. We'll catch you next week with the power rankings, but stay tuned for a lot of matches coming up. There's going to be some great ones to look forward to.